I woke up yesterday feeling odd and itchy. My skin was so itchy I laid in bed for 30 minutes violently scratching until I bled. I rushed to the bathroom to look at my skin and I was almost bluish all over. I hopped in the shower and it provided some relief. I thought maybe I had a rash or something, but I was itchy everywhere. Maybe I had spread it while scratching, I don't know, but I hopped out of the shower and got dressed and went to the store to get some ointment. I got multiple different kinds of lotions and practically lathered myself in it. I started looking up my conditions and I figured it was dry skin or eczema or something. It also mentioned bug bites, which sort of makes sense because I have been spending a lot of time outside lately. Then I remembered the bug bite on my ankle. My girlfriend and I have been picking random cemeteries around town and driving to them. The cemeteries are kind of just a direction for us to drive, and we try to find fun places along the way. Thrift stores, dive bars, trails, and any other things that catch our eye. We made it to a new cemetery the other day in rural Kansas. This cemetery looked abandoned. Okay, maybe not the best way to describe it, but it was not well kept at all. The grass was overgrown, about as high as my waist in some places, and all the tombstones were dirty and withered. We walked around looking at each grave, and they were all from the early to mid-1900s. We found one grave that was well kept, which I thought was sweet. While walking around, I got a painful bite on my ankle that made my knees buckle for a second. I figured it was a big mosquito, but before I got a chance to look at it, an old man with long greasy hair came running from the other side of the graveyard, yelling, "Get off the grass, you idiots." He spooked us, and we both just ran laughing. I had completely forgotten about the bite until now. I lifted my ankle to look at it, and I saw two very big bites, which I thought was weird because I only remember feeling the one bite, but since that bite hurt so bad, I am starting to think this is the root of my itching. What kind of bug could do this? I looked it up and it said it could be an allergic reaction. It says it can be life-threatening, but you know how it is when you look up your symptoms. "Hey Google, I have a headache," and Google said, "Oh, that is unfortunate. You do indeed have a brain tumor," so I kind of shook it off, and hopefully it was mild. Besides, the only condition I had was the itching. I did not have red or swollen skin or a rash or anything, so I was hoping for the best. I stayed at home all day, moving as little as possible. It was almost bearable if I stayed completely still. I continued to scratch though, mostly gently, but sometimes violently, making myself bleed a couple times. Even my face was itchy, especially near my mouth. I zoned out and scratched the same spot at the corner of my mouth for I think an hour before I felt a sharp pain. I went to the mirror and the corner of my mouth was bleeding profusely, blood pouring out of my mouth. I tried to stop the bleeding, but the blood just soaked through the towel. I got in the shower again and the water burned my mouth, but I just let the blood drip into the tub. I stared at the shower floor for far too long as the steady stream of blood faded into the drain. I got out and went back to the mirror and was horrified. The corner of my mouth was ripped open into my cheek. I scratched so hard that I gashed my mouth open. I was disturbed. I was hurting. I was itchy and was truly losing my mind at this point. I was in so much pain I knew I needed to go to the hospital, but I didn't have the energy or the insurance to do so. I told myself to sleep and that I would go tomorrow. I took some of my girlfriend's sleeping meds and collapsed into bed. I think I fell asleep almost immediately. I was drained. Today I woke up, and I wish I hadn't. My skin was no longer itchy. I was beyond relieved. I laid there in absolute comfort, rubbing my skin gently. I put my hand to my mouth to see how my cut was doing, only to find no cut in my skin. I frantically felt all over my face, checking both sides of my mouth. I felt nothing. I sat up in my bed, and when I did, my foot touched something at the end of the bed. It almost felt like a grocery bag. I flipped over the blanket and saw a huge pile of something. It almost looked like the skin of an onion. I was confused, quickly trying to think of what it could be. I felt my heart racing as I slowly leaned closer and closer until my eyes widened and I lunged backwards, tumbling off the bed. I think it's a pile of skin. Human skin. My skin. I am scared and don't know what to do. Please, I don't know what to do. I've tried to tell my wife about this, but she's a science teacher, and thanks to my history of practical jokes, she thinks I'm just kidding. There is something stalking me. I don't know what it wants, but almost every night since I started seeing it, it has terrorized me. It doesn't touch me, it doesn't communicate in any sort of way, it just fills me with horror. If what I seem to ramble, please forgive me. I haven't slept in several days. We live in the second floor of a duplex with stairs down the back of the house to the basement where the laundry machines are. There's a door at the bottom of the stairs before the door to the basement that looks out onto our back porch and into the backyard. 6 days ago, I was going down to the basement to bring up some laundry, and I glanced out the door as I passed. There was a figure standing at the far edge of our yard. Her back was to me, and she was just standing there, looking into the woods beyond our yard. She was dressed in nothing but a light gown. It had lots of flowing material coming off of it that was whipping around in the air slowly. The whole scene creeped me out instantly, but I thought she might be a friend of our downstairs neighbor, so I continued to the basement. When I came back up, she wasn't there. The next night I went down again, and as I passed the back door, I looked outside. The woman was back. She was exactly like she was the night before, facing away, not moving. The hair on my arms and neck stood up straight when I saw her. I was even more creeped out when I realized she was in the same clothes as the night before. That's when I did something I shouldn't have. I opened the back door. Leaning out, I called to her to see if she was okay. She didn't respond. She didn't make any sort of indication that she'd heard me. It was freezing cold, so I shut the door and locked it. Coming back upstairs afterward, I looked out the window and she was gone again. Later that same night, I was in the bedroom, getting ready to go to sleep. Everything was dark, because my wife had gone to bed before me. Our bedroom looks out over the backyard, and my side of the bed faces the windows, so I have to go past them to get in. As I was doing so, I suddenly got that same deep dread feeling in my stomach that I had gotten the first time I saw the figure in the backyard. Something compelled me to hesitate by the windows. My hands were shaking as I pulled the curtain back a bit and peeked through the shades into the backyard. It was a clear night, so the backyard wasn't shrouded in darkness. The woman was standing in the middle of the backyard, no longer at the edge of the woods, facing the house with her head tilted up to look directly at the window I was peeking from. I jerked away instantly, afraid she had seen me. Her face was covered in shadow and hair, but I saw her chin and nose. A sharp nose and a thin chin. Gray. Her skin looks gray, I think. Her hair is black and long. I was so scared, I jumped into bed and covered myself with the covers. The next day, I played outside in the snow with my 4-year-old daughter. She wanted me to pull her on her sled in the backyard, but just the thought of going back there made me scared again, so I talked her into digging holes in the snow in the front yard. That night, things went from bad to worse. Somehow, I had managed to forget about the woman. Then, in the middle of the night, my daughter started crying. Our bedroom is just across the hall from hers. I thought she might need to use the bathroom or just be having a bad dream. So I went into her room to see if she was okay. She was uncovered, curled into a ball on her mattress. I pulled her covers over her, and that's when she whispered to me, "Daddy, there's someone in my closet." Instant goosebumps. I turned my head slowly toward the closet door at the end of her bed. Normally the closet is shut, but now it was open. The woman was standing in my daughter's closet. Not even when it was clear that I saw her did she move or make a sound, just stood there and looked at me through the cracked open door. My blood ran cold when I saw her. "Get up," I told my daughter. "Get in my arms quickly." Quickly she scrambled up and hugged me tightly, and I walked backward out of the room, watching the closet the entire time. In my mind I imagined her throwing the closet door open and running at us, arms outstretched. I just hugged my daughter and walked backward into my room. The woman never appeared in the doorway. I heard no movement from my daughter's room. I tucked her into my bed and stood there watching the doorway to her bedroom. I did not go back in, I just stood there and watched and listened. When I finally got the courage to climb into bed, I didn't sleep. Sunday, I told my wife everything. I told her about the first time I saw this woman. I told her about calling out to her and seeing her from the window. I told her that she had appeared in our daughter's closet. She told me it wasn't funny, that it was my fault for our daughter's bad dreams, and that I shouldn't encourage her to be afraid of her closet. Sunday night, my daughter called to me from her room again. Call me a coward, but I couldn't go back into that room. I called her quietly to come get in our bed, but she cried and said she was scared. I wanted to go and get her, but I was scared too. I told her to pull her blankets up and cover herself. "Just cover yourself, honey, and you'll be okay." I prayed that it was true. I lay there, peeking over the sleeping form of my wife and out into the hallway, at the closed door of my daughter's room, and just kept praying. I heard her cry a while longer, then she went quiet, and I hoped that she was asleep. Monday, I piled toys in front of the door to her closet. By that time, there was no doubt in my mind that this was some sort of ghost or apparition, but I piled things in front of the closet anyway, like a pile of toys could stop a ghost. Monday night, my daughter did not cry, but I didn't sleep. I lay there, looking at the ceiling, tense. Around 2, I heard her bedroom door creak open, and I knew something was wrong. She must be scared, I thought, so I called to her like before, "Just come to me and you can sleep in our bed, sweetie," but she didn't come. I peeked over my wife. The woman was standing there in the doorway to my daughter's room. Her arms hung at her sides, her shoulders slouched down. Her gown was dirty, like it hadn't been washed in years, and hung off her like torn rags. I wasn't breathing. I wasn't blinking. I just looked at her, and she looked at me, and I thought, this is it. I'm going to die. She never moved, never made a sound. I whispered, "Please go away. Please leave me alone. Please leave me alone. Please, I'm sorry." I couldn't look away. If I look away, she will get closer. I was sure of it. If I close my eyes, when I open them, she'll be standing over me, looking at me. At some point, she was gone. It's like I fell asleep with my eyes open. I don't remember her disappearing, just that I was looking at the doorway, and she wasn't there anymore. Last night I lay awake, waiting. I asked my wife to shut our bedroom door, because the nightlight in the hallway was keeping me awake. It was stupid. I don't know what I was thinking. Like clockwork, I heard my daughter's bedroom door creak open. I held my breath. Then I heard the floorboards in the hallway creaking, and I started shaking uncontrollably. I heard our bedroom door open, and I knew she was standing there, in the doorway, not moving, just looking at me. I didn't look. I couldn't. I did what had I told my daughter to do and pulled the covers over my head. I am a complete mess. A zombie at work. I don't want to go home anymore. I think I see the woman in other places. A glance while driving, and I think she's sitting in the passenger seat of the truck behind me, or standing down the street as I drive off. Just sitting here at my desk, someone passes by behind me and I jump. I'm afraid that if I turn around, she'll be there, waiting for me to look at her. And what if I saw her face? I don't want to see it. I don't want to see her anymore, but I don't know what to do. The only hope I feel is that, for unrelated reasons, my wife is talking about moving, but our lease isn't up until May. I don't know if I can hold out that long. The friendly voice of my mother called from the other room. It awoke a warm and happy memory. One of our Sunday breakfasts where my mom would make the best waffles in the world. My parents would share the newspaper, and the smell of coffee would fill our whole house. While I was too young to have any of it then, I loved the smell of fresh coffee. My mom always used to mix in spices like nutmeg. I wish I could have tried her special coffee, but she passed away before I was old enough for it. My eyes shot open. Whose voice had just woken me up? I was lying on the couch in our living room. Well, my dad's living room. I moved out 4 years ago, just after I turned 20. Slowly, I got up and took more steps than necessary until I was standing in the doorframe between the kitchen and the living room. "Dad," I carefully asked, but nobody answered. While it was always slightly emotionally painful, it wasn't unusual. I often heard Mum's voice in my dreams, but it was weird that I smelled waffles and coffee while the kitchen table was completely empty. I shook my aching head. I had the most horrendous hangover that I needed to cure with more sleep. Upstairs in my old bedroom, not on the uncomfortable couch. Dad must have made a toaster waffle before he went to work. Suddenly my thoughts were interrupted. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. I climbed up a few of the stairs and found myself in front of a thick, gray wall. It sounds ridiculous, but the upstairs part of our house had either vanished or was sealed shut with a new wall. This sight felt so entirely absurd that my brain didn't even understand what to make of it. I instinctively took a step back, slipped, and fell down the few stairs. Landing on my butt, and I could swear I heard laughter. I slowly got up and walked towards the TV, but it was black. "Dad," I shouted. "Where are you, Nils? Didn't you hear your mum calling you for breakfast?" Every fiber of my body froze. That was Dad's voice, and it came right out of the kitchen. I didn't understand what was happening, but I knew that it was not right, so instead of checking the kitchen, I decided to be smart and head straight toward the front door. I pulled and pushed, but it wouldn't open. There was also no key in sight. I pushed the curtains from the small window next to the door, but behind it all I saw was black. My heart started racing so fast I thought it would explode. I swallowed when I remembered that I'd seen sunshine through the window in the empty kitchen earlier. Maybe I could get out of the window. When I walked into the kitchen, I saw a little white booklet on the table that I swear wasn't there before. I picked it up and read the cover. All it said was Nils. I was just opening the first page when I saw her right outside of the window, scratching the glass with her nails. My mother. My mother, who passed away when I was only 7. Or rather, something resembling her. I think the best way I could describe it is that she looked like someone had tried to recreate a human based on a picture that a child drew, but with real flesh and skin. Her proportions were all wrong, her face was plastered with makeup, and her hair almost looked as if each strain had been glued on. I felt too perplexed by the situation to even breathe. All I did was stare at it, and then a single tear rolled down my cheek. When he appeared behind her, the copy of my father, I finally woke from my trance and stumbled backward into the living room. The copy of my father was far more realistic, only small components were incorrect. Like he had a big mustache even though he'd shaved it off a week ago, and his nose appeared to miss holes. Small mistakes. Holding that booklet that I found tightly in my hands, I crouched down next to the sofa and hoped that this would all be over soon. I can't say how long I sat on that cold living room floor. There wasn't anything I could do. The only way out seemed to be the kitchen, but at least it appeared like they didn't try to come inside. After what must have been at least an hour of sitting and contemplating my sanity, I decided to look into the booklet with my name on it and started reading the first page. The Adventure of Life. Pilot, Scene 1. We are inside a regular, suburban living room. The childhood home of Nils. We focus on the sofa in the middle of the room. Nils is sleeping on the sofa, tucked underneath a light blanket, still wearing last night's clothes loose, blue denim pants, black t-shirt with a pocket, Converse shoes. His hair is frizzy. A voice wakes him up. "Honey, breakfast is ready." What the actual crap, I whispered to myself. I skimmed through the pages, but hardly any of them made sense. A few scenes were normal, like the one describing me waking up. After that, it was a mixture of random words and nonsense. It was all bull, but I did not want to wait here until the actors of my parents came inside. I folded the paper and shoved them inside my back pocket. Holding my breath, I slowly tiptoed towards the kitchen window. It was the only way out for me. The glass was still foggy from the breath of my mother's copy. A shiver went through my body when I thought about it. I collected all of my courage and peeked outside. There was no sight of anyone or anything. I held my breath just a moment longer, praying that this window wasn't a prop. I probably could have broken it, but that might alarm the things and they'd come back. But I didn't have to. The window opened like a regular one. Finally, I could breathe again. I turned off my brain and climbed out the window. I was staring at a blue wall. Above me was a warm, yellow spotlight. The fake house was standing inside a massive storage hall. Cameras and other equipment were lying around, but there were no signs of any humans. I walked around the hall until I found 2 doors. One of them had a sign glued to it. Audition for New Worley this way. I decided to take the second door without a sign, which led me to a hallway. I ran through it and landed in a second hallway. I kept running until I finally found an exit. When I realized that I was feeling the real, cold air on my skin, tears started streaming down my face. The relief was replaced by fear again when I noticed that the exit led me right into a forest. No roads, no sign of civilization. But I had to focus. I had to get away before they decided that I wasn't supposed to leave. So I started running again. I can't tell you how long I ran for and how many times I got lost, if that even makes sense in those circumstances. But finally I found a diner where I could use a phone. I had escaped and I was safe. Ever since that moment, I've tried so hard to remember the location of the place. The police have not been able to find it with the bit of information I had. Of course, I left out the part about the creatures. Nobody would believe that, but I'm not able to let go of it. I need to find answers before I end up back inside the studio. Because when I fled, I took that script with me, and when I finally got home, I collected the courage to look at it and found another part that wasn't nonsense. Nils decides to trick the parents. He opens the window in the kitchen and climbs outside. He doesn't know where to yet. End of scene. They'd wanted me to leave. No, they even predicted it. And now all I can do is keep wondering if there is a script for another scene, and whether I am in it or not.